Welcome into the Paul Kuharsky podcast, live from Edley's Barbecue at 5 Points in East Nashville. Lovely home to my weekly Thursday broadcast. I'm very happy to be here, smelling all the delicious food and drinking my overflowing Diet Coke that Leon provides me throughout the show. I'm Paul Kuharsky at paulkuharsky.com. You should be a member of my site, where you get all kinds of Titans insight that you do not get anywhere else. If you are truly a big fan of this team and you are not paying $7.50 a month for this product from me, from Mike Herndon, from Blake Bedingfield, you are not the fan that you claim to be. I'm sponsored by Edley's. I'm sponsored by ZENSPORTS, the best place to bet, where you can get a membership for this fine website, my fine website, for free. Details to come. You're making a mistake. We're going to talk about growth. We're going to talk about process. We're going to talk about Joe Burrow. We're going to talk about relentlessness. We're going to talk about looking back at this team a year ago and 26 or 28 years ago. And we're going to dive in right now with help from JT Runke, who's producing back at the Titans press room, where Sam Phelan's advancement to the finals of Survivor is all the buzz. Had a chance to talk to Sam, congratulate Sam, get some background on what happened last night in last night's episode from Sam. But Sam is not obeying my request to stop talking about Survivor until I return. So the press room is abuzz with more Survivor talk, despite my absence. And I consider myself the captain of the Survivor talk. Congratulations to Sam. This thing has really, in a down year, kept the press room, which we always find lighthearted stuff to joke about and whatnot. But to have this storyline's been a real delight for all of us to be able to discuss and review. So that's been a lot of fun. Thanks for all of you coming in. Let's get started with this growth concept. Callahan is talking a lot about Brian Callahan, the growth that he sees with this team. And look, it's hard to see it. Is there growth going on? Sure. But it's so incremental and it's so slow for a 3-win team, 3-10. And I don't think that many people are turning off their TVs at the end of the game or flipping to the next game or leaving the stadium. The few of you who came to the Jaguars game and walking out saying, I really see some progress from this team. You're saying, how the hell did they score 6 points against the lowly Jaguars? And so I understand some of the things he's saying, but I don't. It's very, very unsatisfying. So maybe if there's a time where things click down the road, you can look back and say, yeah, there's evidence of growth. But you know, I think it's more, and D Gup is saying here, the last 2 weeks' performance trumps any growth. And he's claiming growth in these 2 games. I don't know that he said too much about Washington. He's saying, you know, he laid out certain things he wanted to see from the Titans in the Jaguars games, fewer penalties among them, you know, and saw some of these things that he wanted to see. So let's hear first from Callahan about growth.
And the one thing I've stayed true to is I know exactly what I want it to look like, and I know exactly what my vision is for it. And it's been challenged, but I've been able to maintain what I believe. And I think that's a tough lesson to learn, is to continue to get back and keep pushing forward when things don't go exactly the way you thought they might when you take the job. So those are all very general things, and I'm sure we can get into them at another point more specifically. But yeah, I think there's been a lot of growth for me and a lot of learning pretty much every day since I've taken the job.
Right. There's no choice, right, but to push forward. I mean, he can't do anything else but push forward, and he can't abandon his beliefs, you know, because what's the team going to think if he says, well, you know, as a matter of fact, that thing that I've been pushing since the first meeting that we had, no, that's not going to work. I'm changing. And I will say Brian Callahan is not that guy. We've seen guys like that fail all over the league who flail and change and contradict themselves, who get lit up by their press corps for, well, you said you were going to do this and now you're doing that. At least Brian Callahan is staying true to, his themes and his process and the way they're trying to do things. And that's a lot better than some of his contemporaries who are failing at a similar rate, or who have failed at a similar rate and already lost jobs, have done. But this idea that we just wait, and it's going to pop, isn't there more of a feeling that something's coming? If something's actually coming, is this feeling that you're on the verge? Don't walk out of Jacksonville game feeling like, well, yeah, they were close. I mean, there was a little bit more of a feeling of that against the Chargers and the Vikings when they lost by 10. Like, well, they did some good things against teams that are clearly better than they are. And, 10-point losses, I don't know. Maybe at that time we were looking more for more encouragement and we could see it. I think those are far better results than a 4-point loss to Jacksonville. So they're 3 or 4 plays away from beating the Jaguars 20-10, he said. Well, in week 14 of year 1, can't you make one of those plays? You see, can't your quarterback, Will Levis, see Chigakonkwo open on the second read? Looks for Jeff Simmons. It's clear Jeff Simmons isn't going to break open. Looks left. His next read's supposed to be Chig, who's running wide open across the left side of the left end zone, left front of the end zone. And instead he looks to Nick Vanette, who's covered, running kind of parallel in the back of the end zone. He throws to him and he's covered. Can't, in week 14 of year 1, Calvin Ridley, who has started to make a lot of big plays but still makes bonehead mistakes, on a 3rd and 5, catch the ball at a 2-yard gain going out of bounds. So throws a touch late, but he clearly had time to plant and turn, or plant and dive for the marker, get you a first down, instead of running out of bounds with the 2-yard gain and leaving you in 4th and 3. That's terrible. And I mean, he says after the game that he made a mistake, that he would have done it differently, that he felt like, when he peeked, that corner was going to be there. Well, even if a corner's there, he's got to take some contact with him with his left shoulder there, and he doesn't. Can't Levis on the next play make a better throw to NWI, and can't NWI make a better catch? Slippery ball there. I watched this film very closely. When Levis hits his back foot of his drop, NWI is 4 yards open towards the front of the end zone. Throw a dart there, a decisive dart early, and you've got a touchdown. As we wait for the play to develop, well, Calvin Ridley, as the second read, coming more towards the middle of the field, is coming wide open. He could have caught it and ran into the deep. Will Levis not making good decisions in the red zone. He's not a good red zone quarterback. Can't you, in week 14 of week 1, call a damn run on 1 of 3 snaps from the 2-yard line on 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and goal from the 2 when your quarterback's bad in the red zone? And you've got 3 chances. This is on an earlier series from the 2-yard line, and you've run the ball well, and Tony Pollard is your best player. So we're talking about staying faithful to the things you believe in, and this pushing forward when those things don't go exactly your way. But you can make them go your way with making one of these damn plays. One. And that's failure of execution. But these guys' failure to execute is a reflection at some point on coaching, not just the coaching, but like the whole picture, the whole thing of the whole team. And Nick Holtz, the offensive coordinator who just talked to an hour and a half ago, said, we came out of that game into the building the next day after scoring 6 against the Jaguars, and we said, how did we just do that? They said to themselves the same thing that we all said, the press and the fans. How did they just do that? They need more. They need more. Here's Nick Holtz on perspective regarding all of this stuff.
Yeah, he's done a great job of really not going with the ups and downs, right? We've certainly had some downs and some really disappointing moments. And I think his leadership is really kind of why you still feel guys or the energy's good and those kind of things. That all comes from him. He's done a great job of really staying the course, having perspective on what's happened, and still being, frustrated and demanding of guys and things like that. But he's also kind of sees the bigger picture and always kind of takes a step back afterwards and does a really good job kind of resetting, especially on Mondays, of like, here's what happened. Here's what we thought was going to happen. Here's where the disconnect is. Let's reset, refocus, and kind of go from there.
That's Brian. He's talking about Brian Callahan. So that's Titans offensive coordinator Nick Holtz talking about Titans coach Brian Callahan. Here's what happened. Here's what we thought was going to happen. Here's the disconnect. That disconnect is too big too often, right? I'd love to hear more about the disconnect conversation. There's a defensive side to this as well, though the defense played well. 2 turnovers. That's another thing that they emphasized going into that game. Let's win takeaways. They won takeaways 2-0. They still find a way to lose that game. But I asked Denard Wilson, and this video might not fit here in the same way, but about the kind of sustainability of this whole thing, the growth of this team, and what it means now and later. And so this will kind of spin us forward. Denard Wilson.
Yeah, obviously what we do in anything in life is results driven. But when you peel back the onion and you see how the season's gone with the numerous injuries we've had of guys that were here to produce at a high level, losing 2 linebackers early in the year, and then you see the development of Tavondre Sweat, you see the development of DJ, you see the development of Jarvis, and the list goes on. When you look at it, like I say, you're building something going forward that's sustainable. And obviously, as the season goes and years go, you add on to the pieces that you have. But we have some players that are there to build depth and players that's there to develop into starters. So from a big picture standpoint, even though the results aren't what you're looking for, we'll be better off from this season going forward.
We'll be better off from this season going forward. These guys do allow themselves to look more big picture, which I appreciate. Vrabel would never look big picture. He would have said, well, we're on to Cincinnati. Conveniently, the Titans are, in fact, playing Cincinnati this week. But it's just that, it's results driven, but we're growing, and it's going to help us be sustainable long term and all of that. This should have been more results by now. Week 14 of 18-week season in year 1. It should be further along. Let's dive into some of your questions. I'm at Edley's Barbecue in East Nashville. You should be eating Edley's. You should download the ZenSports app. We'll talk more about both. Please retweet. And if you are listening on watching on YouTube, thumbs up and subscribe. On Twitter, like and retweet. If you're listening later on Apple, on Spotify, or on iHeart, like, rate, review, all of it helps. Spread the word. Tell your Titans fans friends that they should be listening. TK asks, over under Bengals score 50 on Sunday. They're averaging 28. They've played some other poor defenses that will allow points. I don't think they're scoring 50. I won't be surprised to see them in the 30s, and I obviously don't think the Titans are getting into the 30s, no matter how poor the Bengals defense is. Brian B., do I think the Titans would consider moving Latham back to right tackle, depending on who's available in the offseason? Thor Nystrom's mock gave the Titans a left tackle, saying Latham would benefit from moving back to right tackle. Yeah, a lot of people are going to do that. They're going to give the Titans the best left tackle in the draft. At 6 or wherever they wind up drafting. I could see the Titans drafting another big-time tackle and sorting it out, but I don't think their aim is to draft a left tackle that allows them to move Latham back to right tackle. I think they think that Latham's going to be an excellent left tackle, and they're content there. And I would hope they're not spending a top 10 pick on a tackle. I would hope that they're drafting a right tackle that they could find in the second round or in the third round if they could make a damn trade that would move them back and get them into the third round where they don't have a pick because of the L'Jarius Sneed trade. But I don't think that they need to be moving Latham back to the right side. You would have wasted a big year of work getting him onto that side. I know he's slumping right now, but he's equipped to be a very good left tackle. Do I think an offseason, Caleb asks, legitimately adjusting right tackle, edge in the first round, and wide receiver could push the 25 Titans to make more of these plays and have fewer offensive line penalties? Well, certainly right tackle has accounted for a giant share of the offensive line penalties and the penalties in general for the Tennessee Titans. Legitimately addressing the right tackle, edge, and wide receiver. Those are the three biggest positions of concern. I think you could add inside linebacker there now. Maybe get away from Kenneth Murray, who is exactly what we thought he would be. And, I think if all of this growth they're talking about comes to fruition, you start from zero every year. But if they can build on the things that they have done this year, which haven't produced enough results soon enough for many of us, for plenty of us, for most of us, and they address those three positions well, they should be substantially better. That's combined with an offseason of Callahan really going to school to get better and to come up with better strategies for the things that the Titans have not been good at. And so that's it. Spencer says, do Rand and Callahan find a new quarterback for next year to extend their timeline with Amy? Sticking with Levis next year and only getting 4 to 6 wins equals firing everyone. That's true. 4 to 6 wins next year with Levis would get everyone fired. But I don't think they reset their timeline with a new quarterback. Rand certainly. I mean, if they go get themselves, they would buy themselves more time with a new young quarterback. Would it be what's best for the organization? No, not necessarily. And that's certainly a question that I'll be sure that Rand gets asked, and Callahan will certainly answer. But they have an obligation, and Rustin Webster answered this question very well and very sincerely. And I believe, while he was not a successful GM here, he did have the best interest of the organization and made moves, going into the end of his tenure that were for the long-term health of the organization, that he believed were for the long-term health of the organization. And Carthon's got to do the same. And he's got to be told to do the same. And you have to pray that he does the same. So I would absolutely be hoping for that. If they take a quarterback, it's got to be because they believe it's for the best long-term organization, not for short-term saving of jobs. Andrew Frill, speaking for a lot of people, the incompetence this team shows is disheartening. Dwayne, great to see you as well, my friend. Dwayne and I are locked in a 2-week fantasy football battle. He is a member of the All-22. We are about even. I have a pretty stacked team. And I haven't looked at his team that closely, to be honest. I disrespect my opponents that way, but I'm looking forward to seeing how things go. I'm on 4 leagues, which is really 3 leagues too many, at least 2 leagues too many. Eliminated in 1, but in the playoffs in the other 3. That's my best chance, the All-22 league, Dwayne. So good luck to you, but I hope you suck this week. How can you trust the process, Andrew continues, with the product on the field? Well, because according to them, behind the scenes, there are things that are happening and in these games on levels that we're not that concerned with because we're results driven. There are things going on that are going to turn into success. This is what they would tell you, right? There are things that are beneath the surface, starting to poke through, that are going to turn into something. Let me tell you about ZENSPORTS. ZENSPORTS, you see their logo up in the corner. You can sign up at ZENSPORTS for a free membership. ZENSPORTS been a great supporter of mine. I hope you'll be a great supporter of them. If you're in Tennessee, go download their app. And what you do is use the code TNPAUL, TNPAUL. You get a no danger first wager bet. So if you lose your first bet, you get refunded up to $1,000. But you can bet as little as $10 with that no danger first wager bet. Get a free year membership to paulkuharsky.com. So you go there, you sign up, you use that code TNPaul. You make a $10 bet, you get $81 value of paulkuharsky.com membership. It's big right there. If you lose the bet, you get the money back within 24 hours. You can bet something up to plus 500. If you win the bet, and you bet a decent amount of money, bet $100, you get plus 500, you're bankrolling your account for a nice while. Got a couple picks for you here, and I think JT and I have been doing pretty well for you. I'm taking the Falcons minus 3.5 at the Raiders. We're talking Desmond Ridder playing for the Raiders. And I know the Falcons haven't been anything special, but the Raiders are truly awful. Titans level awful, like a win worse. I know they're due to break out at some point, but they had that great game on Black Friday. That might have been their breakout game against Kansas City where they couldn't get it done at the end because they fumbled. Snap before they would have kicked the winning field goal. Falcons minus 3.5. I think they're winning this game by more than that, and they're going to be fine. JT, who I think lost last week for the first time in a while. Is that correct, JT? Give me a nod. I think you lost your pick last week, but then you had won like 3 in a row before that, something like that. So odds are strong that JT is going to give you a winner. JT takes the Browns at home plus 4 against the Chiefs. Chiefs have gotten a lot of very good end-of-game fortune. So I think that's a pretty good call as well. Zen Sports. Go to their website. Make one of these 2 bets or one of your own. Put together a nice parlay. Up to plus 500. No danger first wager bonus. Use code TNPaul. Get a subscription to my site. Gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 and over in Tennessee to bet. They're a big supporter of mine. You're a big supporter of mine. Let's make it all come together. The Titans are very poor, Tall Texan said, in the 4 most important positions in today's game: quarterback, offensive line, edge, and wide receiver. I'm shocked they currently have a top 5 pick. I think that's sarcasm at the end there, and they're currently actually 6. So maybe he's shocked they don't currently have a top 5 pick. Yeah, look, quarterback, not great for sure, but maybe functional long-term. Left tackle, the most important spot, but right tackle, increasingly important, and you need to have 2 good tackles. They don't, and their good tackle slumped the last 3 weeks. Edge, very, very poor, not very productive. I wrote a good piece this week about Harold Landry that you should be reading, and about, while he leads the team in 7 sacks, I looked at all 7 sacks. Blake Bedingfield told us why he thinks Harold Landry is not productive in the way he is. Harold Landry, very blunt about his thoughts, kind of admitting that he's not having the season he wants, but talking the way that Harold Landry talks about steadiness and staying the course, which has worked for him in the past. But I said on here last week, I think they go from needing somebody to pair with Harold Landry, needing somebody to maybe replace Harold Landry, who costs $17.5 cash next year. None of it guaranteed. Get out from under that money, get yourself a number 1, pair him with Arden Key, who's been more effective this year. And what was the other spot he said there? Receiver. I mean, Calvin Ridley's been a big upgrade, but then and Nick Westbrook-Akina has been doing great. So they're in as good a shape as they've been in at receiver for a long time. But Nick is going to be a free agent, and they don't have a young guy to kind of build this thing around. And there are young receivers coming to the league in every draft. Everybody's getting one, and the Titans have ignored it. And they've got to add one. They've absolutely got to add one. Let's talk about Titans' opponent this week, the Bengals. Joe Burrow and the Bengals, big problem. Brian Callahan, very familiar with them. Denard Wilson said, they get some idea of how to attack them from Brian Callahan. who was there for 5 or 6 years. Callahan understands exactly what the Bengals try to do. And Wilson said the Titans saw it in camp. The Titans are doing it, not at Burrow level. He magnifies everything, but the Titans run an offense very similar to what Cincinnati does, though they obviously are playing to their quote-unquote strengths as opposed to the Bengals' strengths. Their EPA, their passing EPA, Cincinnati, only better teams in the league, Baltimore, Buffalo, Detroit, and Washington. 4 big winning teams. Baltimore, playoff team. Buffalo, first-place team. Detroit, number 1 seed in the NFC. Washington, a playoff team. And then Cincinnati, 5 and 8 Bengals. They're 5th in EPA passing. They score 27.8 points a game. It's not good news for the Titans. 362 yards per game is 9th. Titans have played teams that are better. Detroit, not a good result. Washington, not a good result. Green Bay, not a good result. And that was a reduced version of the Packers, right, with Malik Willis. 272 passing yards a game, number 1. Passing game, going to kill the Titans. They're going to have to rush Burrow. They don't rush the passer well. Coverage, how long can it hold up? It's good to have Chidobe Awuzie back. Came back last week, had an interception early. It was a gift interception. He caught it. Good. He knows Joe Burrow. He knows Jamar Chase. He knows what the Bengals do offensively better than anybody. Callahan said, they're going to make their plays. They're going to have their catches. We have to minimize the impact. There's no doubt the ball's going from number 9 to number 1. You have to keep a cap on the bigger plays. I remember one of their bigger plays. How about you? January 22nd, 2022, Nissan Stadium. Logan Wilson had just picked off Ryan Tannehill, Ryan Tannehill's 3rd pick. Brace yourself. 20 seconds left. Tie game. Joe Burrow to the right side of the stadium where the Titans white seats spell out Titans. Joe Burrow, 19 yards to Chase on the right side. Killer play. Set up Evan McPherson. 52-yard field goal. 19-16. Bengals upset the Titans in the divisional round of the playoffs when Tennessee was the number 1 seed and sacked Joe Burrow 9 times. Ryan Tannehill's 3 interceptions offset Tennessee's 9 sacks. Titans' dream season comes crashing down as really the pivot point for this franchise that had a couple great runs under Mike Vrabel. But that game left a major wound that took a while to scar. And that scar is not something the Titans have been able to cover up. No matter how much, medicine they put on it, whatever, it just hasn't worked out. Let's hear Brian Callahan on Joe Burrow, a guy he knows really well.
There's a lot of things. One, I think he's just so accurate. He very rarely misses a throw. The ball is almost always where he intends it to go. The other part of it is he's got such great command of the offense, of everything happening out there, knows exactly where his problems are, knows exactly how to solve them. You're not going to ever fool him. You're also not ever going to rattle him. He's probably one of the most steadfast quarterbacks in football in terms of nothing rattles him one way or the other. He's just really a fantastic quarterback. And then the last part of his game that he's really unlocked this year is on the move. He's made some incredible plays off structure, and him and Jamar are on the same page along with those guys in the offense. They're really, really good at reacting when he breaks, and they've created quite a bit of offense that way. And he's playing the position as good as you can play quarterback. It's really fun to watch as a fan of quarterback play, and he's everything you look for in what you're expecting a great quarterback to look like. He looks like it.
So you got a great quarterback playing great football. who's doing the best work he's ever done out of structure and on the move. Does that sound like a problem for the Titans, who haven't defended quarterbacks on the move well this year? No, of course not. Here's Denard Wilson. We'll jump right into that on the key to the Titans defending Burrow. So this is what they're thinking going in.
Discipline. When you look at this team and you look at Joe Burrow, it's probably, you can argue he's probably the best quarterback in the National Football League, one of three or whatever it may be. He knows where to go with the ball. Okay, he's pinpoint accurate. But the one thing that you see, and we have to be disciplined against these guys, is when he extend plays. When he extend plays, all the receivers, all the running backs, they find open windows. And off of those open windows, if he gets the ball out, they create explosives. So our biggest thing is about being disciplined, trying to understand big picture concept of what they're doing in the pass game, and then being sticky at the top of the routes and challenging them. It goes back to it, just like any other good receiver or tandem we play with a good quarterback. You can't play with fear, and you got to attack them because they're going to attack you.
Discipline and sticky. Discipline and sticky sounds good. Discipline, I mean, he's got to be including rushing with discipline there. You got to finish rushing. Hit him. Knock him to the ground. Hit him while he's throwing and create balls that flutter that you can intercept. Yeah, you got to turn the ball over again. They did that last week twice. It didn't pay off. Got to hit him. Got to get turnovers. They got to rush the passer better. They just don't rush the passer well. This leads us back to this thing about the edge. Robert says, how about an edge in the first round? We've gotten 2 in our history, and that's just wild. 2 first round. One of them it goes all the way back to first year as the Titans, 99, Javon Curse, then Derek Morgan. I mean, it's just not enough. Harold Landry, their top edge right now. Second round pick. And that takes me to this. Look, they put out stats. I don't begrudge them. I want stats, right? But sometimes things have to be shaped just in order to make the Titans look semi-decent. So one of the stats they put out this week, players with multiple 8.5 sack seasons for the Titans/Oilers since 1982. Players with multiple 8.5 sack seasons for the Titans. Now, they play 17-game seasons now since 2021. 8.5 sack seasons. That's a sack every other game, right? Nobody's looking for 8.5 sack season. I mean, you take it if you get it. But double digit is what you want, at least, right? At least. Players with 8.5 or more sacks. Javon Curse did it 4 times. Sean Jones did it 4 times. Ray Childress did it 4 times. Harold Landry's done it 3 times. And he's got 7 sacks right now. So if he gets a sack and a half more in 4 remaining games, he'll join this esteemed group of Curse. And then you got to go back to Oilers, Sean Jones, and Ray Childress with 4 seasons of 8.5 more sacks, 8.5 or more sacks. A prestigious number, 8.5. Everybody knows if you're looking for sack guys, the number you look for is 8.5, not 10. I mean, they obviously can't shape this stat with 10. Otherwise, they would have. So we're talking about 8.5 sacks. Sack every other game, which is nice for your second edge guy. So, somebody here said they'd like Landry to be, it should be a second. Brian's asking, he liked my piece on Landry. Thank you. Can the Titans find an upgrade with the $10 million cap savings created by cutting him? I'm hesitant to believe it, so I prefer to keep him. Well, the upgrade comes in the draft. They need a young stud pass rusher. He's going to come in and make a difference right away. That's the upgrade. First round pick, pass rusher. And then you have him and Key and maybe Harrell matures. Maybe you bring in some kind of veteran that they declined to do this year, that they maybe wake up and realize they've got to find somebody. They found Sebastian Joseph Day as a defensive end who's played pretty good football for them. You got to find some kind of edge that could come in. Say he's limited. Can't play the role. We'll bring him in for a situational pass rush. Robert also says they need to upgrade from Tyler Boyd. He's just too slow. I don't think Tyler Boyd will be here after this year. Now, Jaquan Jackson probably isn't that guy either. Well, there's a 6th-round pick that you thought was going to be productive. He's been benched as your return man and doesn't appear to be, a guy that you want to put on the field as a wide receiver. Maybe after another training camp, he's ready to do that. But I think you would want somebody else for that role. So Ed Henry says T. Higgins is a big worry for me. See it being a massive overpay. He didn't make much money. He's not a massive overpay, but you don't want him here next year. So this guy you draft, and I don't think you need to worry about slot, so to speak. Boyd is a slot. Therefore, you have to shape it so that Boyd's in the slot. But if you draft a big-time wide receiver, you can then mix it up. Ridley can play in the slot. Nick Westbrook-Akine, not best in the slot, but can play in the slot. And presumably this new guy you get, ideally, would have flexibility to be able to line up in all 3 spots. But you don't have to have a guy who's purely a slot. It's a disadvantage, really. You want to have the flexibility to move the guys around. So, what you'd rather have is 3 guys that can move all around. Depends on who you draft in terms of your ability to do that. Take some more questions, then talk about kind of, knock my screen there. Then talk about what they're trying to build. Andrew predicts Levis will be tacked 7 times on Sunday. I'm sure there's probably an over-under there. Fade says, I heard what Jeff Simmons said, and I feel like he's talking about our O-line as well. Who else is he talking about? He said he didn't like to see the quarterback on his back so much. Of course he's talking about the offensive. Josh says every time he thinks about the Bengals, he just thinks about what could have been if Tannehill didn't blow it. And D-Gup says, thanks for the memories there. You're welcome. I'm here to serve the fans, public, especially the members of PaulKuharsky.com, which, if I haven't mentioned, you should be joining right now. JT, I don't know if there's a way for you to throw that link on screen, but you could throw that membership link up on screen. People can't click it, so it's difficult. Just go to PaulKuharsky.com. If you're on your phone, there's 3 dashes in the square. Hit that. That'll give you a membership button. If you're on the web, there's membership or sign up button in red. Callahan looking like the Undertaker. Could the Titans go the Sam Darnold route next year? Absolutely. I mean, he's scheduled to be a free agent. There's one loud voice out there that thinks that Minnesota will franchise him. Franchise tags 41, maybe. And I looked at it. Minnesota's got like 63 scheduled cap dollars, so they would really handcuff themselves if they were looking to tag and trade, and anybody that was looking to trade for them could slow play it, kind of force their hand. So Audrey wants to know who's starting at inside linebacker this week. I would think Otis Reese and Kenneth Murray. I don't see that as being a multiple week injury for Murray. Baker's been a disappointment, but I think he'd be in the mix there. What do I see as a higher priority, edge or wide receiver? Well, presuming they re-sign Westbrook-Akine, look, I find it hard to prioritize edge, wide receiver, and right tackle. I think you have to have all 3. I mean, right tackle is the position you absolutely have to solve. So I would put right tackle number 1. Now, that doesn't mean you have to spend the most value or the highest pick on it. But that means you have to have a solution, and maybe a solution and a backup solution on your roster. I'd probably put edge next and receiver third. But again, that doesn't dictate the resources that you have to spend on those positions. Though, it's been too long since they spent a first-round pick on an edge. Silky, really philosophical here. Just win, baby. Fuck your process. JR wants, we need to trade up for another second. Well, the way you trade up for another second is probably giving up next year's something or other. And if you keep giving up next year's something or other, you keep having a hole in your draft. So they need to stop giving up. If you need another second, you got to back up in the first. Yeah. And I really want them to back up in the first. No matter where they're drafting in the first, if they can back up, that'd be great. Now, you got to be higher in the first, ideally, to back up. I've seen some trades with people trading out of 6, which is where they are now, but it's not as attractive a spot. You know, what you really want is somebody to be in a quarterback drafting position when you don't want a quarterback. That is the best way to get trade. My thoughts on Bill Callahan haven't changed. The guy is a very, very good offensive line coach. You guys want results from him with players that just aren't capable of giving him the results. So Bill Callahan failed some, probably, if he said, I can make this work with Nick Petit-Frere and Jalen Duncan and Leroy Watson. If he said that, then he failed them in that regard. But I think also, Rand Carthon failed him in saying, look, you're good, but nobody's going to make it work with Nick Petit-Frere based on what I know and what I've seen. And I'm not saying I saw that, because I thought, hey, 3rd-round pick from 2 years ago, I don't think you should be done with this guy, and I don't think it's unreasonable to presume you could go forward with this guy as your right tackle. That was my opinion coming into the season. I was dead wrong on that, right? The guy's taken a turn and a dip. I don't think he's got the heart for it, and that's led to some major problems. They did bring in people. I mean, they brought in Watson. They brought in Jerron Christensen. So they tried to have a pool of people there. Sadiq Charles would have helped them maybe, alter some positions if he was playing guard. And so, they just had difficulty there, and they couldn't solve everything in one season. But I think Brian Callahan, Bill Callahan, some of his stuff is taking some time for some guys. I would expect next year for J.C. Latham, Peter Skoronski to be really good. I think Lloyd Cushenberry next year, once he's healthy, coming off the Achilles, will be really good. I think Dylan Radins probably gets replaced. But I think it'd be great to re-sign him to see if he could, be your third inside guy. But get 2 new guys, and next year the offensive line should be substantially better. Brian asking, what do I think about a potential 18-game season? Is it inevitable? I think they need a second bye week if they go to 18 games. I think it's inevitable, and I think there will be a second bye week, and they'll get an 18-game season in 20 weeks and stretch things out. And Super Bowl will be the Sunday before President's Day, which will make it kind of a holiday weekend. Andrew, I don't play this game. Andrew asks, who would I take in the first round? Wide receiver, edge, or right tackle? You can't predetermine something like that. I don't know who the wide receiver is, who the edge is, or who the right tackle is. So it's crazy to say they should take an edge in the first round, not knowing where they're drafting in the first round, not knowing much about the wide receivers, the edges, or the right tackles who'll be available, not knowing who the Titans are going to get in free agency before that, not knowing what the teams ahead of them in the draft will do. You can't predetermine something like that. All of these things must be addressed thoroughly in free agency and early in the draft, but you can't predetermine who they take, what positions they address, at what stage. Belichick to the Tar Heels, Robert wants to know about. Very interesting. I think the biggest thing it tells us is he knew he wasn't going to get a job that he liked in the NFL. And I think it tells us increasingly, getting my foot stuck on a cord there, increasingly, I understand why some teams would stay away from him for sure, But I also think some of these ownership / management situations for teams that are going to have open jobs are really unattractive to people. Ben Johnson of Detroit could have gotten a job the last 2 years, decided to stay in Detroit. If he doesn't like the look of these open jobs, he might decide to stay in Detroit again. He's living a good life on a team that he knows is going to be good, where he knows he's going to be who he's going to be working with, who he's going to be working for. He knows the shape of the front office, knows ownership and their involvement, and his obviously is at peace with the situation there, and thinks, going to the Jets with the Johnsons and the craziness there doesn't sound so great. Now maybe he sees who they hire as a GM and everything, and it gets better. But going to some of these teams that going to work for Jerry Jones is not very appealing. Going to work for a lot of these open situations have super downsides. Am I going to take my 3 years as a young hotshot and burn them there, ruin my reputation, and never be a head coach again? Am I as Mike Vrabel, going to take my second crack somewhere where I feel like ownership is not going to give me a chance to succeed, and that's going to be the end for me? And Belichick probably, was going to be a candidate for a couple at best that he just wasn't comfortable with. And he said, I really want that Shula record, but I can go to college, get all the control that I want. My dad was a college coach. I like the idea of being on campus and being a teacher. At the heart of what I do, I'm a teacher. I think it's interesting. We'll see how it plays out. I mean, it could be an absolute disaster. Brian Callahan, Mike Vrabel's burner account, says he's only a quarterback guru if he has Manning or Burrow. Bill is only an O-line guru if he has the biggest, strongest line in the league. Frauds. Good coaches don't need the best for adequate play. Look, I mean, I understand your complaint, but it's very early. Like, do I want to see more sooner? Absolutely, I've wanted to see more sooner. I opened this podcast with 20 minutes on more sooner. But call them frauds yet. I mean, so you think Will Levis is really good? Mike Vrabel's burner? You think that there's much more to have gotten out of Will Levis than they've gotten out of him? Because actually before this last week, it played a pretty decent stretch. And I think Skoronski's gotten better. And do you think Southland? I think Jeff Southland or Stoutland in Philadelphia could turn Nick Petit-Frere into something? Because I just don't think he's a good player. So yeah, even the best coaches need good players, at least serviceable players. And in some situations, the Titans don't have them. So why not turn your attention to Rand Carthon, who hasn't provided the good players, instead of putting it all on the coaching, particularly on Bill Callahan there. I don't think that's particularly fair. Let's talk a little bit about building here. They're trying to build Brian Callahan said, you're trying to build what you want the team to look like, practice like, play like, how they interact in the building. All those things are sort of constantly at the forefront of my mind. He wants a connected team. I think he's got that. Leaning on the same thing. Will Levis says, we're leaning on the same things. We can't be results focused. Now, this idea of process over results, you hear it in some circles. I think in Belichick circles. I think Vrabel hinted at it sometime. I have a lot of trouble with this idea that you run a play and you don't think about the results of the play. You run a series and you don't think about the results of the series. I have trouble thinking as a pro athlete, you run it and you do the best job you can and you don't concern yourselves with the result of it. I don't see how a pro athlete isn't concerned with the result. The result is very important. Did we do what we wanted to do or did we not? We need 7 points here. Did we get the 7 points or did we not? It seems to me like psychologically, human wiring wise, how can you not be concerned with that? that's very hard to train that out of people. Maybe I'm naive. Am I naive? JT, give me a nod. Am I naive? Come on. Speak to us.
No.
Right? Is it crazy to think that people could focus purely on process and just carve out result?
Yes.
All right.
Correct.
I needed that reassurance. Let's hear Will Levis talk about process.
I continue to build the identity that we're trying to build with this program. I know we talked about that throughout the past couple of weeks. We're doing the right things. They're showing up on tape. People are handling themselves the right way. And if we weren't doing that, then this past Sunday could have gone a whole lot more ugly. And it's crazy to think keep leaning on the same things that got us to a position to play a game like that. But we can't be results focused. We need to be process focused. And we feel like our process right now is pretty good. We're obviously trying to find ways each and every week to improve it. But in order for us to build and grow to where we want to as an organization, everyone needs to buy in there and use these last 4 weeks to propel us into the future.
If they weren't focused on process, things on Sunday could have been a whole lot more ugly, Will Levis said. Oh, jeez. I mean, they're pretty ugly as they were. Thank God they were focused on process. Can't worry about results. The process is pretty good, he said. So when the standings for process come out, Titans are going to rank great. I thank God the draft order isn't based on process, because the Titans would be drafting what? 25th? 26th? They're not going to get the big-time edge rusher they need at 25th, 26th, or the receiver or the tackle. I don't know. I need to delve into this more with the guys. But this ability to disconnect from results and think only about process, I get maybe your ability to do it in practice. I don't get the request or the ability to do it in a game. You lose 10-6. You need those 4 points. Your inability to get those 4 points, it's connected to your process. Your process did not produce the 4 points you needed to at least get to overtime, or the 5 points you needed to win. So maybe that's me as a layman not understanding. But I think the vast majority of us who follow this team or pro sports in general have a real problem connecting to this idea of process over results, because the process produces the results. And when the results are bad, it's hard for me to understand how the process is so good. Eventually, your great process has to be producing some kind of great result. When I don't see any result, I have trouble believing in the process. These guys are really have strong faith. It's impressive. I don't see that level of faith at church sometimes. Here's Nick Holtz on concentrating on he says it's hard to focus on process, at least. Maybe he's agreeing with me.
And very much so, to keep kind of that process. Okay, I did this right, but I didn't get the results I wanted. In the red zone and those kind of things where we missed those throws, it is hard. But I think if you just keep showing the tape, you keep showing them where the things are getting better and that those things are so close to clicking that you feel good about it and you kind of, really have faith in what we're doing.
Hard, but they'll attempt to do it. Depth is a huge problem, D-Gup says. It keeps hearing from former players. I wonder how long it will take to fix depth across the entire team. Long time. Well, I mean, you got to also have depth players who are better on special teams that this team kind of disregarded. But you got to sign free agent backups because you're not going to have time to draft them because you only have 7 picks. And, that's 2 5ths or 2 7ths or whatever and no third. And then you need guys like Harrell and James Williams to become better backups and better depth. Finally, we can finish here looking back. I hope Nick Suss doesn't mind me sharing this story. Nick Suss of the Tennessean, part of a football show this morning with Braden Gall, an excellent episode that I listened to. And they talked a lot about this concept of faith, and Nick Nick wrote a story about guys having faith that's recommended reading. But he said on the sideline yesterday when we were watching some early practice, that doesn't tell us much, that he's looking back at what he wrote last year at this time to make sure that he isn't being repetitive. I kind of joked with him. Now, he's been on the beat several years now, but I joked with him. I have to look back at 28 years of stuff to make sure I'm not being repetitive. It's impossible to cover the Tennessee Titans and not be repetitive because they score 16 and 17 points so frequently. Their problems have been so similar for so long. Receiver problems, offensive problems, being defensive centric, lack of sack production. A lot of these issues have existed for a long, long time. It's inevitable that you're going to write similar stuff. I've written a lot about how we write the same thing. I've written a lot about how these themes are constant and unavoidable. And on my list of big pieces that I'm going to do, and Joe Rexrode from the game here in Nashville, who I'm buddies with and do radio with, laughs at me. And I know maybe the premise sounds ridiculous, and I know you've heard it before if you're a religious follower here. There's stuff in the Titans' DNA because some of it has gone from regime to regime to regime. And, I mean, look, Brian Callahan's offensive guy came here to fix the offense in the first year when his team is at its best. It looks just like Mike Vrabel's team. Tony Pollard's playing the role of Derrick Henry. But what do? They run the ball, they run effective play action off of it, and they count on the defense. Like virtually every good Titans team ever. There have been like 2 years of exceptions. Arthur Smith had a great offensive team. Steve McNair had a great offensive team when Eddie George Toe went bad, and they cut him loose, and he won the MVP. This team is fundamentally the same, has the same issues, largely. Does that tie to ownership? Maybe. Gentry Estes, another Tennessean person, columnist, blasted Amy Adams-Strunk today. Great piece. It's what we've all been talking about and feeling for a long time about her inability to express anything about the team leadership. So I would go read that as well. Titans have problems in their DNA. I'm going to cover them. I'll put them all in one place before this season's over. But Nick's trying not to be repetitive. I think repetition is inevitable if you're talking about, writing about, podcasting about, thinking about the Tennessee Titans, who they are and what they do. Eat at Edley's Barbecue. 5 points here in East Nashville. Sylvan Park, Donaldson, Franklin and Berry Farms, Franklin and the Factory, Gallatin, 12 South, and Nolensville. The best barbecue in Nashville. I think the best barbecue anywhere I've gone. And I've spent time in Austin, Texas, and Kansas City, and a lot of the great barbecue towns in America. My mom, my brother, and my sister-in-law from New Jersey, my brother from South Carolina are coming to town this weekend. And Saturday afternoon, we will be in Berry Farms at Edley's having a feast. You should be doing the same with your people this weekend. You should also be downloading the ZENSPORTS app, using the code TNPaul, getting a free membership to Paul Kuharsky by betting as little as $10. First danger, no wager. You could bet up to $1,000 on something plus 500 or less, bankrolling your account or getting your money back. Two great sponsors here, Edley's and ZENSPORTS. Sign up for paulkuharsky.com. Thank you for being here. Don't block the box, and be sure to lock your locks. I will talk to you from the Nissan Stadium press box after the Titans do whatever they're going to do against the Bengals Sunday evening. I'll see you then.